Chains of Dominion, written and narrated by Benjamin Job. Aaron was 35 when he found it. The pendant lay half buried in a velvet-lined box, tucked away in a dark corner of a strange antique shop he hadn't even meant to enter. The shop seemed part warehouse, part crypt, but unlike the hollow institutions he'd abandoned in his search for truth, this place held a raw power that called to something deeper within him. Dim lights cast a sickly yellow hue over dust-covered shelves, and shadows clung to every corner like dampness. As he moved through the aisles, Aaron felt a thick stillness in the air, as though the artifacts themselves were watching him, judging the depths of his desire. The pendant itself was unremarkable at first, a tarnished disc of bronze, veined with thin roots of silver that twisted across its surface. But when Aaron picked it up, he felt not just a heat, but a resonance with something vast and eternal. An inscription, illegible at first, became clear. For those who dare to seek power, a servant awaits. For those who dare to seek truth, a guide emerges. The shopkeeper, a gaunt man with eyes like wet stones, appeared beside him. "Not a trinket for just anyone," he said in a gravelly voice, his gaze piercing. "It offers two paths, dominion or discipleship. Choose carefully." "I seek to become more than what I am," Aaron replied, holding the pendant tightly beneath his hands. It seemed to pulse with life, responding to his ambition, but also to something deeper, a yearning for meaning beyond mere control. That night, Aaron performed the ritual, but with a fatal miscalculation. Instead of opening himself to guidance, he chose to bind. He pricked his finger and let his blood fall onto the pendant, whispering the name Rapha'el as a command rather than an invocation. The air thickened, and then, in a flash of light, the angel appeared, magnificent, a being of pale, unearthly light, with wings that glowed faintly like embers. The angel, though bound, held Aaron's gaze with a solemn intensity that spoke of powers far beyond mere servitude. "You have summoned me," the angel said, voice like whispers of wind through a canyon. "But you do not yet understand what you seek." Aaron smirked, missing the deeper truth in Rapha'el's words. "And now you serve me." In his early years of command, Aaron reveled in the superficial transformations. He had Rapha'el craft illusions of grandeur, great halls that shifted like thoughts, gardens that bloomed with impossible flowers, feasts where each morsel tasted of pure pleasure. Yet sometimes, in the quiet moments between his demands, he caught glimpses of something more profound in Rapha'el's obedience. Once, when he commanded the angel to create a sunset for his guests' entertainment, Rapha'el wove not just light and color, but a moment of such transcendent beauty that several viewers wept, touched by something beyond mere spectacle. Aaron felt it too, a brief connection to something vast and eternal. But he pushed that feeling aside, demanding instead Rapha'el make the colors more vibrant, more impressive, more his. Inspired by the spectacle, Jaden came to him first, an artist whose early work had captured genuine moments of divine inspiration. In Aaron's orbit, Jaden's talents twisted. He abandoned his search for truth through art, instead creating endless portraits of Aaron that grew more grotesque in their flattery. "You are the only muse worth serving," Jaden would say, his eyes fever bright as he painted Aaron wreathed in false glory. Yet occasionally, when Aaron caught Jaden looking at Rapha'el, he saw the artist's hands tremble with recognition of what true beauty might be, before Jaden turned back to his gaudy portraits, choosing the safer path of servitude to to a lesser power. Ethan arrived next, brilliant and ambitious. He had once pursued mathematics as a way to understand divine order, seeing in numbers and patterns the fingerprints of greater truth. But in Aaron's service, he reduced everything to profit and profitability. "We can quantify your greatness," he would insist, presenting charts and graphs that traced his growing influence. Yet sometimes, when Rapha'el demonstrated some working of reality that defied his calculations, Ethan's face would show a flash of his old wonder before he buried it in more spreadsheets. Simon's devotion was perhaps the most tragic. A former soldier who had once understood true service to country, to comrades, to ideals greater than himself. He transformed his capacity for loyalty into blind worship. He stood guard outside Aaron's chambers, sleepless, refusing food unless Aaron commanded it. "My life for your will" became his mantra. Missing entirely how his genuine potential for discipleship had corrupted into mere servitude. Yet there were moments when Rapha'el would pass it, and Simon's stance would shift, muscle memory from days when he had stood guard at sacred places, before he forgot what true service meant. As Aaron's power grew, so did his isolation from genuine meaning. He commanded Rapha'el to make his voice resonate with artificial wisdom, never noticing how the angel's own voice, even in submission, carried notes of true authority that made the air itself vibrate with potential revelation. In crafting grand spectacles for his followers, Aaron missed the subtle miracles that manifested in Rapha'el's quiet obedience. The way the plants turned toward the angel like sunflowers to light, how children and animals could sense the divine presence even through the bonds of servitude. One autumn evening, as Aaron sat in his study demanding Rapha'el transform the view outside his window, something unexpected occurred. A single leaf, caught in the transformation between natural fall and commanded splendor, hung suspended. In that moment, Aaron saw both versions of reality. The simple beauty of the leaf's genuine death, and the artificial perfection of his demanded eternal summer. For a brief instant, he understood that true power lay not in preventing the leaf's fall, but in finding meaning in its natural cycle. But the moment had passed, and Aaron, uncomfortable with the revelation, commanded Rapha'el to make all the leaves golden and permanent in his garden. Another pretty lie in his collection. These glimpses of crude transcendence became more frequent as Aaron aged, each one a small crack in his carefully constructed reality. When Jaden presented his 1000th portrait, Aaron noticed how the painter's early works, stored in a forgotten corner, held more genuine power in their simple strokes than all the later masterpieces of forced grandeur. During Ethan's financial presentations, Aaron began to see how his equations, stripped of their original search for cosmic order, had become as hollow as the wealth they had tracked. Watching Simon maintain a sleepless vigil, Aaron sometimes remembered the stories of genuine heroes, understanding dimly how he had twisted the sacred concept of bravery and service into something small and painful. But rather than confront these realizations, Aaron demanded more from Rapha'el. Each command for greater wonders felt like trying to drown out a whispered truth with shouts of denial. His displays of power grew more ostentatious, his demands more extreme, yet each demonstration only served to highlight what was missing, like a perfect shadow proving the existence of true light. By his 90s, Aaron had grown sallow and thin, his once commanding presence now a shadow of itself. Yet in rare moments of clarity, he caught glimpses of what might have been. Moments when Rapha'el's light seemed to offer not servitude, but partnership in something greater. He saw how his command of the angel had been a chain, not just on Rapha'el, but on his own potential for true transcendence. One evening, exhausted by the hollow adulation surrounding him, Aaron dismissed his entourage and retreated to his private chamber. He called Rapha'el forth, watching the angel's light flicker with a strange, muted glow. For the first time, he looked at the being not as a servant, but as a messenger of higher truth. "I understand now," he whispered. "I chose the lesser path. All this time you could have been a guide rather than a slave." Raphael's gaze held centuries of patient waiting. The constant adulation, the excess, the impositions. I've built around myself a beautiful, empty shell. I want to be free of this. With this, he released the chains from Rapha'el. The weight of his age and mortality began flooding in. Unbeknownst to Aaron, all the pain he had wished away over the years hadn't disappeared. No, this realm doesn't work that way. It was suspended, frozen in time, waiting for its return. As the chains fell from Rapha'el, the suppressed agony of decades came rushing in. A torrential wave of atrophy and torment tore through Aaron's body, aging him rapidly, unraveling its very cells like sandcastles swept away by an unforgiving tide. The universe around him seemed to collapse in on itself, no longer upheld by divine power. His illusions shattered like a cavitation bubble. He flailed, crashing into his desk, sending crystal and a bottle of Chateau Lafleur scattering across his gold-inlaid marble floor. His body, gaunt and hollow, slumped into his opulent chair, the world crashing down with it, his once vibrant self reduced to the wreckage of his own hubris. Before him loomed St. Peter, a figure of unyielding justice, and beside him stood Rapha'el, now unbound, radiating a light so pure it pierced Aaron to the core. For the first time, Aaron saw the angel in his full majesty, the very embodiment of a truth he sought to control, rather than serve. His life, filled with false grandeur and hollow conquests, unraveled in his mind. He saw each choice, every wasted opportunity, his relentless pursuit of dominion over truth. Peter's gaze was steady, bearing the weight of ages.
"You had an entire lifetime,"
he said, his voice resonating with the gravity of a verdict already written.
"A lifetime to choose light over shadow, to see beyond the illusions you demanded."
Aaron's voice trembled as he looked to Rapha'el. I see it now. I bound you, tried to control what should never be bound. I wanted to be more than human, but I traded away what made me human. And Peter raised a hand, silencing him.
"It is not enough to see now that your choices are done. Redemption was ever within your reach, yet you sought only power, not truth."
There was no anger in his tone, only a finality that cut deeper than wrath.
"In your life, you made yourself ruler of empty things, forsaking the very path that could have led to transcendence. You had stolen a cornucopia of boundless gifts, and not once did you lie at his feet. Not once did you pour even from a boundless cup in his name. You cry out, 'Lord, Lord.' Now that the cup had returned to him, he does not know your name."
He turned his gaze to Rapha'el, who looked upon Aaron without malice. For the first time, Rapha'el's face had finally shown emotion. After all these years, Aaron saw it, solid as stone. Rapha'el's stare held only a deep sorrow, as one mourns a soul that has never realized its purpose. The angel turned, stepping away without a single word of comfort, his light receding into the vastness beyond. As the brightness faded, Aaron felt the chains that had once bound Rapha'el, now coiling around him. Each link forged from his own ambitions, his self-deception, his rejection of truth. Desperation clawed at him, but the path to freedom was long closed. His voice, bleeding, echoed into emptiness as Peter's words resounded one last time.
"You chose dominion over truth. now inherit the shadows of that choice. This is not cruelty, but justice.
As Raphael's light faded beyond sight, Aaron was left in the vast expanse, bound and alone, a ruler of the kingdom of shadows, confined by the very chains he had fashioned with his life's choices. As we reflect on this life and the choices that we make while we're possessed by it, we must remember, we all have ensnared our own angel. This is a fundamental truth of our birth into a society. We use scrawlings and utterances of our dead ancestors to weave spells that instill thoughts, even memories, into another that otherwise wouldn't exist. We use the tools of our fellow humans, both living and dead, in an exploitative manner for our own motivations and purposes. We utilize a scientific method we did not develop, derived from a culture we did not create, that was handed down from on high from an ineffable God, regardless of its existence. The question then becomes, what do you do with your angel? What do you earn for your reward? If you enjoyed this story, consider subscribing to VIP access for 2 exclusive stories each week. If a subscription isn't in your budget, sharing helps just as much. Spread the word on social media, share links, and tell friends and family. Your support and word of mouth make it possible for me to keep creating high-quality content. Thank you for listening to this Idea Forge production.